Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayanti Nashtaprayi Vyavadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Seva Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Nashtiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita by Srila Goswami, Volume 3, only he could lead them. San Francisco, India, 1967, Chapter 28, India Revisited, Part 2. So Prabhupada is in India and his disciples are making all the arrangements, different lecture arrangements, engagements for him in America, and Prabhupada is ready to go back to America. Knowing that Swamiji would soon be returning, the devotees in America began to increase their activities, each group asking him to come to their particular city. On November 4th, Prabhupada wrote, Mukunda, as you say that my absence is being felt now surely more deeply than ever. So I also feel to start immediately without waiting. And to Mukunda's wife Janki, he wrote, every minute I think of you, and as you asked me to go to San Francisco while returning from India, I'm trying to fulfill my promise. I'm thinking of going directly to San Francisco. At the bottom of the same letter to Mukunda and Janki, Achyutananda added a health report. Swamiji is looking healthy and living and working regularly, but his pulse rate is generally too fast. Last night it was 95, unusually fast even for him, as it generally hovers between 83 and 86. Prabhupada decided not to wait any longer on the chance that Mukunda might secure him permanent residency. I want to return to your country where there is good air and good water, he told Achyutananda one day. Every day we are receiving letters that the devotees want me there. I thought that in my absence they might deteriorate, and I was reluctant to even come to India. But now I see that it is growing. There is need for me to go and supervise the expansion. So I want to go back. The only impediment now seemed to be a delayed P form, a clearance from the Bank of India required for an Indian citizen traveling abroad. I'm just ready for starting for America, but as you know, our competent government is very slow in action. The P form was submitted almost a month ago, but still it is undergoing red tape. The visa was granted to me within half an hour. The passage money was deposited within 2 days. But unfortunately, the Reserve Bank of India is delaying the matter unnecessarily. I expect the P form at any moment, and as soon as I get it, I shall start for your country. Just to make certain that Swamiji would come first to San Francisco, Mukunda sent his telegram to Calcutta. Swamiji, Brahmananda, and I agree you start immediately. Advise exact arrival date, Mukunda. Prabhupada had planned his route through Tokyo, intending to stop for a day to probe if there is any possibility of starting a center. Can you believe? In Tokyo, Japan, no devotees, but he wants to start a center there. In Tokyo, he would let Mukunda know by telephone his arrival time in San Francisco. But 3 weeks passed while Prabhupada continued to wait for his P form. Meanwhile, he received good news from New York. The Macmillan Company's interest in Bhagavad Gita was real. The contract was being drawn. Pleased with Brahmananda, he wrote to him on November 11th, explaining his visions for distributing Krishna conscious literature. If publications are there, we can work from one center only, like New York or San Francisco, for propagating our cult all over the world. Let us stick to the publication of BTG more and more nicely and publish some Vedic literatures like Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, etc. As Prabhupada's mind turned more to the preaching that awaited him in America, he assessed that what he had done so far, what he would do, and the process by which he would do it. I'm not in agreement with Mr. Altman that we are expanding very thinly. In my opinion, a single, sincere soul can maintain a center. You know, I started the center at 26 Second Avenue alone. I took the risk of $200 per month for rent. At that time, there were no assistants. Mukunda was at that time a friend, but there was no responsibility for him for maintaining the center. Gradually, Kirtananda and Haigrave joined, but they did not take any responsibility. Still, I was maintaining the establishment, simply depending on Krishna, and then Krishna sent me everything, men and money. Similarly, if a sincere soul goes out and opens a center in any part of the world, Krishna will help him in all respects. So this was a driving force of devotees they just went out to different countries and opened centers. And as Prabhupada said, Krishna will help, and Krishna did help in every aspect. Without being empowered by Krishna, nobody can preach Krishna consciousness. It is not academic qualification or financial strength which helps in these matters, but it is sincerity of purpose which helps us always. Therefore, I wish that you, Brahmananda, will remain in charge of New York. Let Saswarup be in charge of Boston. Let Mukunda be in charge of San Francisco. Let Janardhan be in charge of Montreal. Let Nandarani and Dayanand be in charge of Los Angeles, and let Subuldas be in charge of Santa Fe. In this way, you will follow my example as I did in the beginning at 26 Second Avenue. That is preaching, cooking, writing, talking, chanting, everything, one man's work. I never thought about the audience. I was prepared to chant if there were no men to hear me. The principle of chanting is to glorify the Lord and not to attract a crowd. If Krishna hears nicely, then he will ask some sincere devotee to gather in such place. Therefore, we advise that thousands of centers may be started if we find out a sincere soul for each and every center. We do not require more men to start. If there is one sincere soul, that is sufficient to start a new center. On November 12th, Srila Prabhupada wrote to Krishna Devi, I'm coming soon to San Francisco. I shall let you know the exact date sometime next week. I'm coming over very soon to see you when everything will be adjusted. Hope you are well. And the health notes from Achyutananda continue to arrive. Please tell the devotees out there to take good care of him. It's a very hard task trying to restrain him from overworking himself, but they must be strict. He still has to take his medicines and get his massage every day. On November 20th, Prabhupada dispatched by boat to New York more than 800 copies of the first 3 volumes of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And on the next day, his P form finally cleared. Immediately, he booked passage on Pan American Airlines and sent a cable informing Mukunda that he would arrive in San Francisco on November 24th at 12:45 p.m. But again, his departure was delayed, this time by a strike by the Communist Party in Calcutta. Businesses closed, cars, buses, rickshaws, and trains stopped running. Riots broke out. There were murders and assassinations. Meanwhile, Prabhupada remained at the Radha Govinda temple. My return to your country is already settled, but due to a petty revolution in Calcutta, I'm not able to leave. Our San Francisco friends may be very anxious because I sent them 2 telegrams, one informing them of my arrival and the other cancelling it. Future arrangements are pending. 2 weeks passed while waiting in his room for the political strike to end. Prabhupada received a letter from Umapati, one of the devotees he had initiated at the first initiation in New York in September of 1966. Umapati had given up practicing Krishna consciousness for half a year, but now he wrote to say he was back. Prabhupada replied, it is my duty to deliver you the right thing in right earnestness, and it's the duty of the receiver to act in the standard spiritual regulation. When you left us, I simply prayed to Krishna for your return to Krishna consciousness, because that was my duty. Any good soul who approaches me once for spiritual enlightenment is supposed to be depending on my responsibility to get him back to Krishna, back to home. The disciple may misunderstand a bona fide spiritual master being obliged to do so under the pressure of Maya's influence. But a bona fide spiritual master never lets go of devotee once accepted. When a disciple misunderstands a bona fide spiritual master, the master regrets for his inability to protect the disciple. And sometimes he cries with tears in the eyes. We had an experience while my Guru Maharaj was alive. One of his disciples who accepted sannyas was one day forcibly dragged by his wife. So, wife showed up in the ashram and she forcibly dragged the sannyasi back home. My Guru Maharaj lamented with tears in his eyes, saying that he could not save the soul. We should always, therefore, be careful of being attacked by Maya's influence, and the only means of guarantee is to chant Hare Krishna offenselessly. We should always be careful of being attacked by Maya's influence. Maya is very, very strong. It's Krishna's energy. And she's the one making the whole material world go round and round. We should not be messing with Maya. We should just be praying to Krishna to please save me. That's all. When Prabhupada received news of quarreling in Los Angeles temple, he replied to Nandarani, I know that my presence is very urgently required. Arrangement is already completed and circumstances alone have checked my departure. Please, therefore, don't be worried. I'm coming to your place within a fortnight. At the end of first week of December, the strike ended and Srila Prabhupada again booked passage. You will be pleased to know that I purchased my ticket for New York via Tokyo and San Francisco. I'm starting tomorrow morning at 9:30. By evening, reaching Tokyo via Bangkok and Hong Kong. I shall rest 24 hours in Tokyo, and on the 14th at night, I'm starting for San Francisco. By local time, I'm reaching San Francisco on the same day, the 14th at 12:45 p.m. by PAA, Pan American Airlines. Yesterday, I have sent one telegram to this effect, and I hope I shall reach there safely as scheduled. I'm so glad to learn that Satyabrat and yourself are trying to get the teachings of Lord Chaitanya published. You do not know how pleased I am to hear this news. When one book is published, I think I've conquered an empire. So try to publish as many books as possible, and that will enhance the beauty and prestige of our society. The Impersonalist mission has nothing to say substantial, but because they have money and have published so many rubbish literatures, they have become very cheaply popular. You can just imagine how much powerful our society will become when we have as many substantial literatures published. We should not only publish in English, but also in other important languages as French and German. Wow, look at his vision. And it's in 1967, 1966, when ISKCON was registered. And first storefront was rented. And now he has vision to print the books in French and German. When the day for Prabhupada's departure finally arrived, he gave last instructions to Achyutananda and Ramanuja. Just pray to Lord Krishna that I can go to America. He requested Achyutananda. How can I? Achyutananda replied. You will be leaving me. No, Srila Prabhupada replied. We'll always remain packed up together if you remember my teachings. If you preach, you will become strong, and all these teachings will be in the proper perspective. When we stop our preaching, then everything becomes stagnated and we lose our life. Even here in India, people think that they know everything, but they are wrong. There is no end to hearing about Krishna. God is unlimited, so no one can say, I know everything about God. Those who say they know everything about God do not know. So everyone will appreciate you. Do not fear. Achyutananda. When I returned to the room after sending off Swamiji and paying my obeisances at the airport, I felt a void. I felt very lonely and rather weak. I returned to the room in front of Shri Radha Govinda and chanted on my beads. I started pacing back and forth. What will I preach? The black and white marble floor passed under me. I stepped on the cracks, in between the cracks, and on the black and white marble again and again. Then I realized I wasn't seeing Radha Krishna. So I sat down directly in front and saw the brilliant form of Radha Govindji, and my eyes were filled with tears. Srila Prabhupada spent his stopover in Tokyo, mostly in going to his hotel and checking into his room, bathing, resting, eating, and returning to the airport the next day in time for his flight to San Francisco. But he did speak with the government secretary, explaining that Krishna consciousness was a universal philosophy for reviving a person's original eternal consciousness. And he explained the crucial need for Krishna consciousness in human society. The secretary, however, said he felt certain that the Japanese government wouldn't be able to help a religious movement. Prabhupada was annoyed. This supposedly educated man was so ignorant as to mistake Krishna consciousness for merely another sectarian religion. Prabhupada wanted intelligent men to try to understand Krishna consciousness and understand that the Gita was actual knowledge, transcendental knowledge beyond the inferior knowledge of the senses and the mind. But he had his plane to catch. Japan would have to wait. The passengers and flight crew saw Prabhupada as an elderly Indian man dressed in saffron robes. The stewardesses weren't sure at first whether he spoke English, but when he asked them for fruits, they saw that he could and that he was a kind gentleman. He was quiet, putting on his glasses and reading from an old book of Indian scripture for hours at a time, or moving his lips in prayer while fingering Indian prayer beads in a cloth pouch, or sometimes resting beneath a blanket, his eyes shut. So Prabhupada was traveling alone this time, with nobody to take care of him, no servants. No one knew or bothered to inquire into what he was doing. They didn't know that anxious young hearts were awaiting him in San Francisco, that the Macmillan Company in New York wanted to publish his English translation of Bhagavad Gita, or that he had spiritual centers in 2 countries with plans for expansion all over the world. Prabhupada sat patiently, chanting often, his hand in his bead bag, depending on Krishna, as the hours passed. After a 10-hour flight, the plane landed in San Francisco. Standing with hundreds of other passengers, Prabhupada gradually made his way to the exit, down the long attached tunnel. Even before he reached the terminal building, he could see Govindasi and a few other disciples smiling and waving on the other sides of the glass partition. As he entered the terminal building, he moved towards the glass, and his disciples dropped to their knees, offering obeisances. As they raised their heads, he smiled and continued walking down the corridor. While they walked alongside, only the glass partition separating them. Then they disappeared from his view as he walked down the stairway towards immigration and customs. The downstairs area was also glassed in, and Prabhupada could see more than 50 devotees and friends waiting eagerly. As they again caught sight of him, they cried out as a group, "Hare Krishna!" Swamiji looked wonderful to them, tanned from his 6 months in India, younger and more sprightly. He smiled and triumphantly held up his hands in greeting. Devotees were crying in happiness. As Prabhupada stood in line at the customs inspection point, he could hear the devotees' kirtan, the glass walls only partially masking the sound. A customs official ignored the chanting, although the connection between the saffron robe passenger and the joyful chanters was not hard to see. Srila Prabhupada waited in line, glancing now and then at his chanting disciples. Since he had already sent ahead the 800 books and several crates of musical instruments, he had only 1 suitcase to place on the table before the inspector. Methodically, the inspector went through the contents: cotton saris for the girls, silk garlands for the Jagannath deities, kartals, saffron dhotis and kurtas, a coconut grater, and little bottles of Ayurvedic medicine. "What are these?" the inspector probed. The little bottles looked strange, and he called for another inspector. A delay. Swamiji's disciples became perturbed by the petty-minded customs inspectors, poking through Swamiji's things, now opening the tightly corked bottles, sniffing and checking the contents. The inspectors seemed satisfied. Prabhupada tried to close his suitcase, but he couldn't work the zipper. Another delay. The devotees, still anxiously chanting, watched as Swamiji, with the help of the gentleman behind him, managed to zip his suitcase closed. Swamiji walked towards the glass doors. The devotees began chanting madly. As he stepped through the door, a devotee blew a conch that resounded loudly throughout the hall. Devotees garlanded him, and everyone pressed him, handing him flowers. He entered their midst as the beloved father enters and reciprocates the embrace of his loving children. So, thus ends this chapter and the volume 3. And I guess now we have to stop these classes till I come back from India, because I cannot complete the next chapter before I leave. So looks wonderful how devotees were there to greet, to welcome Prabhupada. How enthusiastic, eagerly they're preaching and the opening centers, and how Prabhupada is working with them. It's amazing how he created this spiritual family with so much of love and caring. Anyway, we'll stop here, see anybody has any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisance. Prabhuji, recently when I was hearing Radhanath Swami Maharaj glorification by all the disciples, I found this very much common actually, this love and care which Prabhupada had. So it is like, I find that these devotees are still trying to, have that same feeling, trying to be Trinadapi Sunichena, and with that they are trying to just accommodate all the people, trying to be very humble, trying to just work out this preaching of Srila Prabhupada. This is really amazing to see actually. Just my fear is again I
That
have
is
a fear
true.
also that I don't know what will happen to next generation when Srila Prabhupada's disciple will be no more, only the disciple's disciple. How it is going to be with ISKCON? It is really going to be tough time, Prabhuji, I feel.
Well, yeah, but at least now we have a structure to work upon. I mean, at that time there was nothing. No.
पर प्योरिटी थी ना प्रभु जी, सभी लोग जो कर रहे थे वो डेडिकेटेड थे, उनके अंदर कुछ डुप्लिसिटी नहीं थी कि ये भी कर रहे हैं और अंदर अंदर कुछ और भी प्लान है, या मतलब जो थे वो थे। अगर वो हिप्पीज थे तो वो हिप्पीज थे, और अगर उन्होंने प्रभुपाद का शरण लिया तो दे वर वेरी डेडिकेटेड। मतलब ये बहुत ही अमेजिंग क्वालिटी है।
Yeah. Yeah, but as we just read one line that there was some fighting in Los Angeles temple, and Prabhupada said
Yes,
that
yes.
government. So that Kali Yuga influence is always there,
Yes,
always
Prabhuji.
there. But yeah, hopefully we can carry on with Prabhupada's instructions.
Yes, Prabhuji.
That's
True.
all. Chalo.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji,
You
for the
all have
class.
safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. Jai Srila. Thank you, Prabhuji.